Hello everyone. As we all know, the Indian economy is passing through a very critical phase. In this video, we will be discussing the recent developments in the economy. The much awaited GDP data for the second quarter of FY20 was released last month. The GDP growth rate for the second quarter of FY20 stood at 4.5%, one of the lowest in the last 26 quarters. It was not a surprise as most of the indicators ranging from index of industrial production, electricity consumption and core inflation were pointing towards the fact that the economy has not entered the revival path. GDP by definition is a sum total of private investment, private consumption, government spending and net exports. So let's analyze how all these four components has performed in the second quarter of FY20. Firstly, the consumption demand, which is measured by the private final consumption expenditure, registered a growth rate of 5% in the second quarter. In the second quarter of FY19, the growth rate was 9%. It shows that there is a decline in the consumption demand in the economy. However, when compared to the previous quarter, that is the Q1 FY20, we can see that there is a modest improvement. For instance, the growth rate of consumption demand was 3% in the first quarter of FY20. Secondly, investment demand as measured by gross fixed capital formation registered a growth rate of 1% in the second quarter of FY20. In the second quarter of FY19, the growth rate was 11%. Thirdly, net exports, which is the difference between exports and imports. In Q2 FY20, we can see that both the export of goods and services and imports of goods and services registered a negative growth rate. Lastly, government spending, which is measured by government final consumption expenditure, is the only component that marked an improvement at a growth rate of 15%. In Q2 FY19, the growth rate was 10%. With the falling consumption and investment demand, it was expected that the RBI would go for the next round of rate cut in its December meeting. Contrary to the expectation, RBI maintained the repo rate at 5.15%. The major reason for the RBI to pose a rate cut is the rising inflation. In October, the retail inflation as measured by Consumer Price Index stood at 4.62%, a 16-month high. Food inflation stood at 6.93%, a 39-month high, mainly due to the skyrocketing prices of vegetables. With the RBI following an inflation targeting regime and Consumer Price Index being the nominal anchor, the rising inflation refrained the central bank from the rate cutting spree. The wait and watch approach with RBI will also help us in understanding how the 5 consecutive rate cuts and the various measures by the government will help in unfolding the growth revival for the economy. The central bank has also revised the GDP growth rate for FY20 to 5%. The 5% growth rate is one of the lowest in the last 10 years. To achieve the 5% growth rate, there is a need for the economy to grow at a rate of more than 5% in the coming 2 quarters. However, we are getting a mixed signals from the economy regarding the growth revival. For instance, in October, core output growth contracted to 5.8%. Tractor sales, which is an indication of the health of the rural economy, is also on a decline. The passenger vehicle sales, which has marked some improvement in the month of October, mainly due to the festive season, is on a decline in the month of November. Similarly, core inflation, which is inflation excluding food and fuel, is at their lower levels at 3.46%. On the positive side, Purchasing Managers Index for manufacture and services has shown improvement for the month of November. The performance of all these indicators is important as it helps in determining how the GDP data will turn out in the coming 2 quarters. Thank you.